Hello, everybody. Good afternoon for those in APAC region, and good morning for those who are joining from European time zone. I'm pleased to have you and so many participants today in today's webinar. And we'll have an interesting session around growing your Microsoft Dynamics cloud business in APAC region. What are the trends and what are the challenges? And it's quite an extensive topic, and myself alone would not be able to cover it all. So we'll have a quite interesting team of participants and speakers. I'll introduce them in a minute. Before that, there's a few things to mention about today's session. First, you have a chat box open. The chat box very much encouraged for two things. First, welcoming, sending greetings from any location you are in. One Factory team is sending locations from snowy, snowy and cold Vilnius. And also chat box could be used throughout the full session for questions. So please put the questions, raise those questions in the chat box. And at the end of the session, at the end of the webinar, we will have the Q&A slot and we'll definitely address those questions. And last but not least thing to mention is that, as mentioned in the description of today's webinar invitation, we will also have prizes. So stay tuned until the end of the sessions and you'll see what kind of prize it is. So without further ado, allow me to introduce speakers today. So first we'll have Rimvydas, who is our Cloud Line Business Manager at One Factory. And Rimvydas will share insights and trends in cloud ERP business worldwide and in APAC region. Also, we're glad to have our partner Isco Infotech joining, and Sanjeev will share insights about, from the customer perspective, what are the trends when going and discussing cloud with them. And we'll also have Manta's session, a brief session, Manta is our cloud specialist at One Factory, and he gives some insights and solutions to some of your questions as well. Good. So before we start and before I give the word to Rimvydas, there's probably a few things to mention about One Factory. First, we are dedicated Microsoft ISV Development Center. So we mainly work through Microsoft Partner Network. We don't have our own end customers and we don't have implementations. We mainly specialize in helping Microsoft partners with their Dynamics ERP product. We have two products that we work with, that is AX F&O, and the main topic of today's session is Dynamics Navision Business Central. And our core specialization is upgrades. We've been doing those upgrades for quite some time, and our recent specialization and the best strength is upgrades to SaaS. So among other things, there are a number of other things that One Factory does, but today's topic about cloud. So now I'll invite Rimvydas to give us overview and trends. What do we see in terms of the ERP cloud trends? Yes, Rimvydas?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rimvydas, leading the cloud business line in One Factory. Well, a little bit about myself and why this webinar is so special for me. So APAC is definitely my favorite region in the world. I spent quite a few years living and working in this region. I've been on the other side. I've been with a vendor, with Microsoft for almost 15 years and spent quite a bit of time in Asia and in APAC, helping partners to, well, basically do the business development and go-to-market strategies in this market. So therefore, this webinar is really special for me, and it's always nice to speak to the partners and friends in APAC. And I hope I can contribute with my insights as well. So if we look at the ERP cloud worldwide trends, that I would say very, very much corresponds to APAC as well. We see that the cloud usage, basically the scenarios of ERP running on the cloud is very much increasing. If we saw roughly that a couple of years ago when survey was made, there were only 8% of CIOs planning to have a full cloud strategy. Now this trend is probably more than 25%. But since the study was made probably before the COVID era, right? And we know that during the past year we had a we had 2 years of digital transformation during just several months. So I'm sure these numbers actually, if we would do the study right now, would be even higher. This means that more and more CIOs, they are planning to have ERP and other workloads in the cloud as much as possible. Definitely ERP, I would say, is a little bit of a slower workload to go to cloud. Right? If we think about other workloads like collaboration, email, and that kind of stuff, probably 99% of those workloads are already in cloud. With ERP, it's a little bit more cautious. There's still a lot of the customers that are still on-prem, using the ERP on-prem. So like 35% of ERP customers are still on-prem. Half of the customers, I would say, they are adopting cloud strategy, meaning they are in the transition, they are in the journey. Only a few percentages worldwide of those ERP installations are fully in cloud. Definitely this piece of full public cloud is growing very fast. It's the fastest growing scenario. So definitely the piece of public cloud and SaaS solutions will be way bigger than it is now, and in expense of probably on-premise and hybrid solutions. But the thing is that the journey of ERP to the cloud is absolutely obvious. And the pace of that, the speed of this transformation has been increasing throughout past year extremely fast. So as said, maybe it's not as fast as in other workloads, but I'm sure that's the time of ERP to start moving to the cloud. Now, when we talk about APAC, some of this APAC specifics, and one thing, if someone is going to APAC market, can tell that every market in APAC is quite different. Right? The markets in developed countries like Singapore or New Zealand are quite different from market of Philippines or Thailand, and probably way more different than other smaller markets like Sri Lanka, Maldives, or Bangladesh. Right? So all those markets are very different. And one size of the offering may not fit all. Right? The situation in the markets are different, even from the infrastructure point of view. If some of the markets there's no issue with bandwidth and latency in connection with data center, and I would assume that in Singapore this issue is not really relevant, but in other more distant markets that's very big of an issue. Security is on top of every CIO head, right? So there's no way any cloud provider would be able to be successful with their offerings to the customers without ensuring the security. So security is always the question. In some of the market, subscription traditions are not yet there, right? So people tend to own a thing, not really subscribe to that. So this transition going on as well, pretty obviously. Price sensitivity, that's definitely part of this part of the world. So in most of the markets, price sensitivity is very important. So if you don't have a good price or transparent price, simple price, that's very hard to sell cloud. And if you probably may know that in some cases, cloud price might not be that obvious, right? If you are not able to calculate how much of the processor power you are using, how much of the network bandwidth you are using, then the cloud, just as an infrastructure as a service, might be quite complicated. On SaaS, as like a service, so that can be much more transparent. But on the positive side, on APAC markets, I would say that market is completely very competitive. All of the cloud vendors are there. There are a lot of Dynamics partners in the market, so all of them are competing for all of the customers. So the market is very competitive. So those partners who are not able to basically ensure the journey to the cloud, invest in themselves, or sell this vision to the customers, they are probably not going to be very successful in the long term. CapEx investments might be an issue especially in some of the markets. So nobody really wants to invest into the CapEx. And in CapEx, I mean in the infrastructure of the ERP systems, Therefore, cloud adoption is therefore very, very, very attractive. Market is extremely tech savvy, so there are so many tech talents from universities and from everywhere that there's no problem to have people that would be able to understand technologies. And people, I would say, as a consumers, they're very tech savvy to adopt the technologies. In some of the markets, there was this, I would say, quantum leap, jumping over all type of the technologies directly to the cloud, to mobile and digital stuff. So market has already have a lot of great success stories. So companies like Grab or Gojek, they would never be successful if they wouldn't be able to adopt the cloud strategy. They just exploded at some point of time, and you can imagine how much of the investments they should have done if they would be investing into their own data centers and not adopting cloud strategy. So definitely APAC market is ready for cloud. In some parts of the market is going faster, in some parts it's going slower, but it's the trend and the direction is absolutely obvious, and the cloud market is definitely booming throughout the COVID situation, throughout this digital transformation acceleration, if I could call that. Now, from our perspective, from One Click Factory perspective, what kind of partners do we see? I would be talking more about NAV and Business Central Dynamics partners profiles. So some of them are just starting business. There are a lot of startups that don't have a customer, they don't have the product ready, they may have a lot of ideas. So definitely cloud is the way for them to try out those ideas and to test them in the market. A lot of partners, they having some of the customers, and maybe they're not that active. They receive the inquiries from customers about the cloud adoption, cloud options, and now they're looking for the solution in the market. Some of the partners has been in cloud. They might experience some difficulties with their current vendors or current partners, so they might be evaluating their options. And I would say a lot of partners they are trying to refocus. A lot of partners, probably a couple of or 3 years ago, they have started doing cloud on their own. Many of them, they understood that it's quite complicated to do their own cloud, and they decided to focus on what they do best. And what they do best is usually they develop the solutions on Dynamics platform and serve customers in their specialized markets, and vertical or horizontal. So they just want to focus on their core business and leave other stuff like cloud things or infrastructure things to other partners as well. So that's what we see the partners we're seeing in the market. Now, when we come to the cloud adoption options, and we'll talk about that later in this webinar, we see that those partners that I showed to you, especially ones that are already having customers on board, so those who might be refocusing or re-evaluating, they may have several options to move to the cloud. The most desired one, if they have the legacy customer, so they would just upgrade the customer to the newest Business Central, move their solution to extensions, and migrate to SaaS version. That's obviously a desired version. In reality, it might not be that simple, right? So in some cases, you cannot upgrade to the SaaS version. In many cases, partner solutions might not be yet ready to move to extensions, right? So they basically have to rewrite their solution to be compatible with the Business Central extensions. So in this case, we offer, and we see that a lot of partners are adopting this approach, which we call phased approach. So they upgrade customer to the version that is compatible with the cloud, and with compatible version, we basically say that it's NAV 2015 or later. So the later, the better. So if you're able to upgrade to BC 17 on-prem version, that is fine too. They move this version to Azure, to the hosted environment, and we'll talk about that later too. And then they prepare the extension, and they prepare while the SaaS limitations are overcome, and they will migrate to SaaS afterwards. So this migration will be easier for them because they would be like one one foot already in the cloud. So they would already consume cloud benefits being on Azure, while they still have time to basically rewrite their solution to extensions and prepare customer and prepare the situation to be ready to SaaS. And the third option is basically moving to hosted option and stay there for some time until you basically understand when the SaaS version is ready, when the SaaS version current limitations are not a challenge anymore, or maybe your solution is already easier to migrate to SaaS, and then you probably will migrate to SaaS. You just don't know now when are you planning to do that, right? So if you don't have like exact plan, our suggestion is to move to Azure, to hosted Azure, and then start planning how to move to SaaS. If you have like a roadmap, migrate to SaaS already now, there's no reason to wait, and you can start doing now. So with that, with this intro that I gave, I think that's it from our side, and I pass word to
me.
To you. Okay, to you. Okay. So
yes, thank you, David.
Yeah,
thank you for the great insights. So I understand that cloud is unstoppable, and partners in APAC are ready. So it would be interesting to hear now, as we heard a bit of the insights from the when we go ahead as Monthly Factory and talk with Microsoft partners. Now it would be interesting to hear from the first lines, from the practical experience. So what is the dynamics customers are talking about and how they're reacting to cloud? So for that, we have Sanjeev. Good afternoon, Sanjeev.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. And I think before we go into detail of this topic, I would like for you to give a bit of a background about Isco Infotech, okay?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Rimidas, and thank you, Ausre. Yeah, well, Isco Infotech is incorporated in 2006, and we are based in Singapore, and we have office in Hong Kong as well. So we've been like throughout all these years, we've been doing, Microsoft Dynamics NAV, or earlier known as Navision, and now Business Center. And we've been focusing specifically on like financial accounting, like manufacturing or project accounting and construction and retail businesses. And we have like customers, in the region, I will say like we have multi country installations, including like Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, Thailand, Korea, Japan, China, Germany, and USA. So we have like countries in quite a number of countries. So, and we have exposure on like different localizations requirements in those countries. So I mean, like throughout these years, we've been focusing specifically on now Business Central, and we started like few years ago. We started talking to customers about moving to cloud, and I mean specifically like what Rimidas mentioned, that is going by step. So earlier from on-premise installations to we start taking them to Azure. So we managed to do like some of the customer to move to Azure, where they can have some sort of cloud experience. They can access the system remotely, and they can use it on maybe on their iPad or on their pad or laptop. So
if I understand correctly, so the customers in the APAC region is more or less getting familiar with the cloud, either be Azure and also you already started talking conversations about SaaS in general, about the cloud. So the trend is quite a positive, correct? Among the customers.
Yes, I mean over the years we can see the customers are willing to move to Azure. This was the situation before the pandemic, but the pandemic further speed up this process because there were many customers who were caught up off guard during the pandemic, and they don't have like on cloud solutions. So some of them, when there was like lockdown, in many places, so they cannot go to office, so this was a very big challenge for customers. So now there is a lot of like things happening, and people are, they are more keen and more open to move to cloud.
So when you are discussing, we see on the screen the second slide. So when discussing cloud, SaaS or Azure, what criteria customers are raising, what they are looking for?
Yeah, I mean, whenever we start talking, the first thing, the customers, the first criteria or the first thing they will say that they want one solution. Because in an organization, there are multiple systems being used. So they are having different systems. So, I mean, this is the key requirement or key aspiration or key expectation from the customers that, they want to have a integrated system where, like, for example, they can have Office, they can have Business Central, or if they have any third party system, probably which can also be integrated to Business Central. So that is their key expectation. And then second, obviously, they want to reduce the costs. Like if, for example, they are having servers in the office, they need to maintain the servers. They need to probably have IT or maybe third party, vendors supporting their IT infrastructure. So definitely now going forward, they want to like reduce that cost. They want to cut that cost. And definitely, like, I mean, many of these customers from like for our targeted segment, they are like SMEs or small, medium businesses. Probably some of them, they are changing from some legacy system. So they want like some scalability. Like today, maybe they are having 5 users, 10 users, and then in future they can increase. So Business Centrals provide these options for them, I can share with you that Business Central is quite popular actually, yeah, because it's like scalability and easy to use. Very quickly, with very minimal training, the users, they can learn fast this thing and they can start using it. And also further, like, the customers, they want something like, where they can collaborate or they can have some sort of like simple document management also. Like, for example, like you want to store your purchase invoices inside the system. So, generally the customers, they receive purchase invoices either in Excel, PDF, or picture format. So which Business Central, fortunately, they allow it to store inside the system. And obviously, like it provides them the flexibility, of work practices. They can work from home, they can work from anywhere they want, anytime they want. It's not like now that, you have to just do very time specific, like some of the people even working after, let's say, 6 p.m. Or late in the evenings. So it depends. So this system, once this system is on cloud, then it provides them. So this is the key like expectation and the requirement. And further, in the previous times, we want like, the system to be updates. Like for example, if we have server updates, so we have to run some process to update. So now their preference is like, whenever I log into the system, it should be like automatically updated. So that these are key expectations. Like whenever we start this conversation with the customer, so these are the first, few key points or key expectations from the customer side. Yeah.
So working remotely and simplicity. This is what I heard.
Yeah, simplicity. Yes.
So I guess you, as you said, you haven't been having conversations with the customers about cloud for quite some time now. So maybe you could share with us some tougher questions that the customer raised and some sort of more concerning questions that they are raising.
Yeah. So whenever we start talking to customers, the first questions, obviously, they know that, there is a cloud. First thing they will compare with their email, so if I want to like explain someone, the cloud, so I will tell them that, like they are using for probably, Outlook email, or, they are using probably Hotmail or any other emails from Microsoft. Then I will try to relate. You say you've been using the cloud for so many years, so wherever you go, in in the world you can access, or anytime you can access emails. So similar concept we want to bring to the system as well. So it doesn't matter whether you are in office or you are at home or you are sitting in cafe or you are sitting any other place. I mean, this system you must be able to access the system at any time. And then they will ask definitely, like, what are the pricing models, like, because obviously if we are talking something new, it's giving little bit shock to people, Whenever you say, I want to like take your system from your office to cloud, so they have like several questions all of a sudden running in their minds. And then they will say, apart from pricing models, then can I use it on my phone? So that is another question. Or can I use it on my tablet? Because when I go to office, I have my desktop in office, but I'm carrying phone, or I'm carrying tablet, or I'm carrying iPad with me all the time. So obviously, yes. So we can explain to them, even we can, create some demo instances for them. We can say, we can let you have the experience of, using cloud. So they can, I sometimes ask them, actually, you can use your phone as well as your tablet or wherever you want to use, so you can feel it comfortable. Then there is also another challenge in the systems is version control, because I mean, we know like every year there is a release, sometime one release, sometime two release. So it's like, it's very difficult to catch up, for the upgrade. So now we are also pointing that, there can be, like as mentioned earlier, it can be automatic updates or upgrades to the system. The version control or version upgrade is not going to be a big problem in the future. In fact, it will be very smooth if they move to SaaS, and in that meantime, they can move to first Azure at least, so they can have a look and feel of cloud. Okay, then another key question comes here, the location of the database. I mean, in some countries, there is a requirement the database has to be in that particular country. So the database location is another very key and important question. Because if, let's say, I'm talking to a customer in Singapore, and I say your database is in Europe, they actually do not want it. So I know, I mean, like when they ask me, then I will say, oh, Azure provide us or cloud provide us the option where we can keep the database. So we can go to the particular region and have the database actually. Okay, then they will ask also, like, who will be the owner of the database? I mean, like, data belongs to who? So we always explain and try to make them comfortable that database is yours. So you are the owner of the database. And like, we can also provide them, like option from front end where they can export out the data if they need actually from the system. Then another key question, I mean, which is like very genuine as well, like for large companies, they will ask the database size, like what are the limitations on the size. So for SMEs or for small companies, straight away moving to SaaS or Azure is actually quite simple because they don't have at that time much data actually. But for big organizations, where they have like huge databases, so obviously we have to explain to them, that they need to have private cloud. If like some of them, like I have some case where one customer using like more than 50 companies. So we have to explain to them that they should move to Azure and private cloud, so where you can easily control like RAM or the database size or the other infrastructures, and same time you can maintain the speed. Okay, then another thing, we are asked very regularly, like, what are the security measures? Is my data safe? So that is, I can tell you, like, it's not only in APAC, in every region. People are like, nowadays we come across, like very often that there is a hack, some database is hacked, some website is hacked. So people are very concerned. So what are the security measures you are using, so that their data is safe? And again, for the, like, what is the service level agreement and what is the commitment from Microsoft side? So it's like my system is all the time. So obviously, like, we try to mention that this SaaS or public cloud or, even Azure is 99.9%. Uptime is guaranteed there. So these are like some questions. And if they say like, if I use SaaS for example, like 2 years, then what will happen to my data actually? So I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the customer can export the data, or we can ask them that you can extract the data from the system, or we can provide them the backup of the database, so where they can restore and access it, I mean, from the, like, using IT or from backend actually, if they are not using the system anymore. So these are like key concerns from the customer and key questions, irrespective of country. Wherever we go, whoever we are talking, we are continuously or very regularly, these questions are asked. So whenever we start a conversation with the customer, I can anticipate that these questions, is on the way straight away actually.
So I understand that you are either with SaaS or with Azure compatibility, so you could easily cover all these questions, yes?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you for the great insights, and thank you for joining today. It was interesting to hear the insights when you go ahead and talk with the customers. I hope for the partners tuning in, that would also be a good preparation questionnaire when they go ahead and discuss with them.
Yes.
Discuss with the partners, with the customers. Good. So maybe as we're a bit not running out of time, but we have one more topic to cover. So as Sanjeev mentioned, we have, when talking and discussing with the customer, cloud is probably already on your mind and should be already on your mind. And as Sanjeev mentioned, it should be already in the discussion for quite some time and an agenda when going ahead and talking with the customer. So the question, as Sanjeev mentioned, about the options. Do you have options when migrating to SaaS? And the answer to this question, just to summarize, as Rimvidas mentioned, yes, you do have options in terms of approaching and talking with the customer about SaaS. So as Rimvidas mentioned, the direct way, there's a direct to SaaS way, the smooth transition when you migrate your Navision Business Central customer first extension and then to the SaaS. But the second question is if it's not that easy of a transition, what could be the other solution? And the other solution, we give and talk with the partners, and partners talk, as Sanjeev mentioned, with the customers, the hybrid approach to SaaS. When you go ahead, put your on-premise solution on Azure, and then you work on smoothing everything out until the customer is ready to go to SaaS. So now I will ask my colleague Mantas to give us some insights about what is that we need to consider when discussing with the customer the hybrid way to SaaS. Please, Mantas.
Thank you, Ushina, for letting me take over. And first of all, I'd want to thank all of our participants gathered here today. Well, it's truly amazing that cloud readiness has become such a relative topic to everybody in the ERP business industry. Because of that, partners should be concerned with the fact that there are very few differences in the final user experience when using either SaaS or hybrid hosting, leaving partners with a question. Well, would it be possible to have a cloud-like environment on an on-premise solution? Well, in our opinion, yes. By choosing an on-premise on Azure hosting, you give your customers an opportunity to freely enjoy the cloud benefits, and in addition to that, you grant them a safe passage for future SaaS. This allows both the partner and the customer to focus on the dynamics itself rather than the infrastructure, leaving the partners also with the following options to choose from. Firstly, and most obviously, well, straight to Business Central SaaS, as recommended by Microsoft. In contrast to this, of course, you can manage your own on-premise solutions, but we are focusing on how to adapt the cloud to your ERP system. That leaves us with the two last possible options. Either manually doing every customer setup, or developing an automated system to do that manual work for you, or utilize an already developed tool sold by a competent cloud provider. But keep in mind when choosing a cloud solution vendor that there are more aspects to consider than the infrastructure. it is also important to have a consistent and dependable monitoring and adequate security management, along with backup availability. According to our calculations, around 8 employees are required to successfully develop and host an effective hosting business, which is a considerable amount of resources that could be saved with some other solution type, for example, an automated provisioning system. Which brings me to the last factor to consider when choosing a cloud solution provider. Well, how much time would it require to set up one client? From our own experience, we have deployed over 1,000 customers this way. We can confidently say that an inexperienced employee would take around 50 hours of time to set up a server for one specific customer. And once this dedicated person has executed these processes a few times, well, the time it would take him to do those tasks would go down to around 10 hours, but that would still remain a no match for an automated work, which takes all the manual process out of the game. This would be a decision for you as a partner to either utilize the already created tool or try to reinvent the wheel. To summarize, we are probably the biggest NAV and Business Central service provider globally, service like a platform for deployment. Before making your decision to how should you approach your cloud customers, well, consider every detail: the infrastructure, the backups, the security management, monitoring, and overall time input required to set up a server for one specific client. These are all the things that we were thinking about when we were creating the One-Click Factory self-provisioning service, which allowed our partners to have a simple automated platform with high security, scalability, and support standards, where partners can easily and simply deploy and manage their Business Central or NAV customers, while providing them with the much required cloud environment. I will now let Oshina take over and summarize everything we shared today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mantas. Thank you, Rimvydas. Thank you, Sanjeev, for participating. Thank you, people who joined today's session. Indeed, we went quite effectively and quite briefly through the topics. And maybe a few things and key things that we would like for you to take out from today's webinar. First is SaaS is the future. SaaS is something you should definitely go ahead, write up the webinar and talk with your customers. And what we want you to feel and know that you have plan A, direct way to SaaS, and you also have a plan B in case this direct way to SaaS is not that direct. So probably, as Sanjeev mentioned, the question raised is always the price. And for your legacy customers, Navision Business Central customers, when you go ahead and discuss SaaS and migration to SaaS, the question you will receive will be, what is the price? What is the price for direct way to SaaS, and actually what is the price for hybrid way to SaaS? And in this case, One-Click Factory could also help you out. So in terms of that direct way to SaaS, we could actually give you the free estimation on your customer dynamic solution, and we could make an estimation, fixed price estimation of how much it would cost for you to migrate to SaaS. And you could actually go ahead after the webinar and make a request on that upgrade assessment, and then we'll come back with the price. And when discussing the hybrid way to SaaS, as Mantas mentioned, One Factory has built the automated system for deploying on-premise solution on Azure. And I'm glad to announce today that everyone who participated in today's webinar will be eligible for a free sandbox trial for 30 days via our platform. So what I would like everyone to urge to do after the presentation is to go ahead and claim the prize on our website. Yes, so that was that we had prepared for you today, and now we have time for Q&A. So I just need to check if we have any questions. Let me just check it. Yes, I see one question. That is, what is database size limitation on on-premise hosted on Azure? So maybe I'll ask Rimvidas if he might answer this question.
Yeah, so and that's actually a very good question, right? And we receive this question pretty frequently. And as you know, in Business Central SaaS, you have a database size limitation. If I remember correctly, now it's 30 gigabytes per company and 80 gigabytes per tenant, right? So as Sanjeev mentioned, if there's a bigger size of the customer, there's a big probability that the database size is either already bigger or will be bigger in the nearest future. And in terms of SaaS, that is sometimes might be a challenge. Because for SaaS, if you are having a large database, it's either not possible or extremely expensive. So in Azure hosted environment that we offer, we do not have this database size limitation. So this is one of the scenarios where we help our partners and customers to overcome this limitation and find the cloud solutions. And One-Click Factory self-provisioning service, we do not have a database size limitation. Whether it's 1 gigabyte or 500 gigabyte, well, we do not charge for the database size in most of the cases. Okay.
Thank you, Rimvidas. Thank you, Rimvidas. Hopefully it answered the question. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. I guess no questions. I guess everything was answered and clear. In case you have questions after the webinar, feel free to contact us directly, and we'll be happy to help you out. Yes, so now is the time for thanking you. Okay, so there's a question about any customer success stories on healthcare sector, please, on Business Central. I don't know, Rimvidas or Sanjeev, do you have any customer success stories to share?
So, frankly speaking, it's not that I know that we don't have healthcare sectors. I don't know exactly, the verticals of the customers that we're hosting, right? So we can actually try it out, look into our customer base, and come back with the answer if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have questions pouring in. We are happy about that, and good. So the second question I see is, are all hybrid Azure customers hosted at Microsoft data centers?
Yes, all of the from our platform, all of the hybrid hosted customers are hosted on Microsoft Azure data centers. Right.
And those data centers are all over the world, yes?
Yes.
So there's options.
Yeah, we do support, for APAC region, we do support Singapore and Australia data centers, which covers basically most of the market. Yeah, so, and we support many more data centers all around the world.
Okay, we have one more question, and it sounds like that. I have Navision 2013 database with heavy customizations, but no licenses. Can you arrange Navision 2013 licenses and host the database?
So it's I would say that's a pretty complicated situation, to be honest, because the platform that we are having is supporting from NAV 2015. And there's several reasons for that. The biggest reason is that from our deep technology review and analysis, the earlier versions are not really cloud compatible. So this means that we cannot guarantee SLA that it would be working the way it should be. Therefore, we are not supporting NAV 2013. We're only supporting NAV 2015 and onwards. Even though to say that NAV 2015 is not anymore supported by Microsoft, but it's running on our platform and we don't see any problems there. So it seems it's still fine to run that. So for 2013, well, the way we basically would suggest is to do the upgrade to well, at least 2015, but the later version, the better.
Mm-hmm. And follow-up question was, assuming it is, Sanjeev, we want to add something, yes?
Yeah, I want to mention here, because in this case, the customer does not have the license. So actually Microsoft is not selling anymore 2013 or even 2018. I mean, 2016 is available in case of like India, for example, but like in Singapore or in the region, they are not selling 2013 or 2015 or 2018. So, answer is no. And advice is, or workaround is that this solution can be upgraded to Business Center. And then you can have the license.
Yes. Thank you, Sanjeev. Good. Any other questions? We have time for one final question. I guess no. I guess no. So time for thanking Sanjeev, Rimvidas, Mantas for time, for insights. Thank you for all the participants today. And what I would like to say is that keep us in mind. It is not the last webinar we'll have. So keep an eye on our invitations and mailing list, and hope to see you in the next webinar. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Goodbye.